This is the Korg SQ-64. Korg released this as a beefed up version of its SQ-1 sequencer. About a month ago, it went on sale and actually still is on sale on Reverb from the Korg Outlet Warehouse for $130. It's got 3 melodic tracks, 1 drum track. It's technically 4 tracks, but you can't make 4 melodic tracks. The only sequencers that I could find that are even somewhat comparable to this were things like the BeatStep Pro or the KeyStep Pro. Both of those offered multiple tracks and focus on sequencing rather than sampling. So just when I was kind of comparing everything, it was pretty much the SQ-64, BeatStep Pro, and the KeyStep Pro. In this video, I'm going to address some of the complaints and concerns, comments that I heard online. I've had about a month to play with it now, and I've gotten to know it really well, so I feel like I can address all of those issues. There's a lot to like here, but there's also a lot of flaws and things to dislike. Either way, I hope everything that I have to say will help you decide what sequencer is right for you. Let's dive in. So back when I first got this, I decided not to do an unboxing video because, well, it's a sequencer. I thought it would be kind of boring. I do remember taking it out though and loving the feel and the build quality of it. And if I'm going to be buying a hardware synth, I really want it tactily to feel really good. The SQ-64 is super sturdy and it feels really professional. Right when I took it out of the box, it was immediately noticeable just how heavy it was. I mean, it's not super heavy, but compared to what I was expecting, this isn't a toy. It's got all metal housing, the buttons feel great, the knobs feel great. The second I opened it, I was super impressed. Right as I got this thing, I immediately went in and updated the newest firmware. So I don't have any experience with the firmware that people were talking about as being buggy. I only have experience with the most updated firmware as of December of 2022. Let me just start off with a few complaints. The first one is the poor manual. I mean, this thing is really terrible. And while there are some useful reference tables, that's pretty much it. It's pretty worthless beyond that. The features that it does cover are the ones that are self-explanatory. And there are a lot of features that it doesn't even touch on at all. And that's really problematic because there's a couple of actions that I still can't figure out. And I don't know if it's just something that this thing can't do at all or if it was just omitted from the manual. But with all that said, I did find it extremely easy to figure out 90% of its functioning. And I didn't even need the manual. One other major complaint are the buttons. Or more specifically, it's the lights behind the buttons. The buttons feel pretty good. They are not velocity sensitive though. Now, the latest firmware update did make them brighter, but I still have a hard time discerning if they're on or off. And additionally, in keyboard mode, the root notes are illuminated pink as opposed to red. In low light, it's fine, but in typical daylight, it starts becoming really hard to see. And even if it is usable, it's just kind of a bit of an odd choice. Another strange design choice was the keyboard mode. You can select between keys, isomorphic, or octave. As an aside, the menu displays the word isomorphic, which I don't actually think is a word. It's missing the R. I don't know if that was a spelling error or if they couldn't fit it on the screen, but it's just another example of a lack of attention to detail. Anyway, the keyboard layout is weird. It took me a while to understand that the notes were double dipped to make like longer shaped keys. It's definitely not how I would have set it up. The isomorphic, I'm just going to call it ISO mode because I don't know what it's actually supposed to be. It's meant to be like, it's kind of set up like a guitar. So it goes, each row it goes up by a fourth. And the last mode is octave. And that's the one that I found to be the most usable. You can set the scale and the notes of the scale and they're laid out for you in octaves. But here's another thing that just took me a quick second. There are some notes that are grayed out. Now on other controllers like the Novation Launchpad, if you select a particular key and scale, the notes that are not in the scale won't be lit up. And that's what I thought was going on here, but it's not. If they're grayed out, that means that there are a black key on the piano. For instance, if you set it to C minor, the third note up is E flat, and you can see that it's grayed out. Again, it just seems odd to me, but as a piano player, I guess I don't really mind it that much. I would have thought that they would have just had the notes of the C minor scale laid out, either have them all be lit up and just those quantized to those particular pitches, or actually have them spread out with the grayed out notes being the notes that aren't in the scale. Either way, once I got used to it, it's fine. There is one feature that I just can't seem to find, and I don't even know if it exists. It's not mentioned in the manual, but again, the manual is so terrible, I don't know if they just forgot to put it in there. It has to do with transposing sequences. So sometimes I like to transpose whole sequences while I'm playing, creating like a chord progression. So it's possible to transpose a sequence. You can do it in two different ways. You can do it by turning the knob, but that cycles through all the notes in between where you're at and where you want to transpose to. So it's not great for performance. You can also hold shift, and if you turn the knob while holding shift, it goes up by octaves, which is kind of handy. It's also possible to transpose by going into keyboard mode and pressing a key, which I should note is not in the manual anywhere. But it doesn't appear that you can do all the sequences of the project at once. You can only do one individual track at once. And furthermore, it doesn't appear like there's any way to latch the sequences. So the second you lift up on that button, it returns back to its original key. So you can't make permanent key changes in the middle of a song. So transposing sequences in that manner with latch and transposing the entire project, that's really the only gripe that I had which actually impacts the music that I'm going to make. And maybe it's even possible to do it, I just can't figure it out, and it's not in the manual. So if any of you out there have bought it and know how to do it or can figure it out for me or find it somewhere online, please listen to the comment section. I will note that it is something that can be updated with the firmware, so hopefully, fingers crossed. Connectivity is also something that you should consider. So there's plenty of CV outs, modulation, pitch, and gate that are assignable for each of the melodic tracks. And there's 8 trigger outs for the drum track. But there are only 2 MIDI outs total. And they're also not 5-pin MIDI, they require adapters, which aren't included. The USB cord that they send you is a micro USB, and it's only about 3 feet long, which is really frustrating. You can use a power adapter, but you need to get a specific Korg one, and that just adds to the cost. I have tons of power adapters at home and was a bit frustrated to find that Korg chose to make the barrel size not fit typical adapters. It might be some sort of standard size, but I didn't have one that fitted. So you have to go out and purchase an extra power adapter. So with all that out of the way, let me say that it isn't all bad. Beyond the basic functioning that you would expect, there's a lot of really useful and cool features. It has a loop mode where you can select a range of steps that will repeat, or you can select particular steps and the sequencer will loop only those steps. By holding shift, you can easily go through different playback options: forward, reverse, bounce, stochastic, and random. It's really easy to set the timing division for each track, which comes in handy when making polyrhythm. I really liked how ratcheting worked. The visual aids and the screen make added elements like this really easy to use. And again, as I mentioned before, the build quality is just fantastic. And once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to navigate. If you consider the current price on Reverb at $130, there's really no other sequencer that I can think of that even comes close to what the SQ-64 can do at that price. At the regular price of $300, the decision starts to get a little bit harder. Korg doesn't have velocity-sensitive pads, and it's pretty hard to program a sequence in real time using the record mode. If you're someone who likes to play pad drums or play your sequences in real time, you might want to consider one of those alternatives. But if you're like me and enjoy taking a methodical approach to programming sequences, then this works really well. If you can't get it on sale, I still think that the SQ-64 is a really viable option. I'm super happy with it, and I'm confident that I'll get a lot of good use out of it. I'm hopeful that the transposing, I'll either be able to figure it out or they'll add it through a firmware update. But for $130, I can look the other way on it. So I hope you found this helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.